Okay, so today Huawei P20 review, and since I've already reviewed the Pro, I'm not gonna go into all the details in this video, but focus more on the differences between the two. After all, the P20 is a slightly smaller, watered down P20 Pro for everyone who wants just to pay a little bit less, and that's okay. But in case you're missing something, just watch the Pro review and you should get the whole picture after all. So, let's get into the size differences, and this is, by the way, the light that I will review soon as well. So, the P20 was the P20 Pro. You can see definitely that the Pro is after all noticeably taller and also noticeably wider. And that is good for everyone who wants just a little bit of a smaller phone, because actually I have to say personally, this was the perfect size for me. I would have wished for this to be the proper flagship, but it's not. But just in terms of differences, it's smaller, buttons feel just about as nice. The fingerprinter is still top notch, it's pretty much the same. The back is also the same, and the front door is also the same, because they all come with a screen protector. But once you take that off, I just need to know that for the review, the coating is a little bit subpar, because it gets quite slimy quite early, and it's a little bit harder to clean like on the really good phones. It's not a bad coating, but it is not quite as good as other ones. Now, otherwise, I don't really tell you much about the notch. You can check that in the review. Of course, there's a notification LED, there are on-screen buttons, and pretty much everything else. So let's just get into the display, because there is a little bit of a difference. Yes, and as you can see, obviously there is screen dimming going on, because I set the brightness and it just changes by its own. Actually a little bit more here than on the Pro, because the Pro got updates to fix that, but this kind of does what it wants. Sometimes it goes all the way down, sometimes it goes super bright, so it's a little bit of something what it wants to do. But still, we have the color temperature mode here, and of course the vivid and normal mode. You can still change eye comfort, natural tones, and I have to say the display is absolutely nice and it's fully satisfying, but it's not quite as good as on the Pro. And not because of the resolution or anything like that, because the resolution, due to actually being IPS, smaller display and the same resolution, is better. But the quality just isn't quite as in general, because it's only 450 lux, so noticeably less bright, which will make it a little bit harder in daylight situation. And it's just not quite super clear, but it's mostly the brightness and just not a super spectacular screen, but otherwise it gets the job totally done. Now the speaker, just really quick. I think that's good enough just to get a really small glimpse, because this is not a good speaker. It's loud enough, and I almost wanted to give it 4 stars, but since I gave the V30 3.5 stars and some similar phones, I can't give this more than 3.5, because it sounds very thin and quite cheap with enough volume. So it will get the job done if you just want to watch a YouTube video and hear what some people are saying or so. It's good enough, but good quality is not what you're getting out of it, which is pretty much the same for the non-existent headphone jack that you will need the dongle for, because that one will also give you just about mediocre quality in terms of overall volume and sound, so 3.5 stars is what it gets. Now performance, you would expect it to be exactly the same as on the Pro. And you would be right, but it's just not the case. And not that it's really slower, that's not really something I noticed, but what I notice is even more so inconsistency when it comes to scrolling, even more so slowdowns, and even more so stuttering. And that is already the reason why I didn't give the Pro 5 stars, just 4.5, because yes, once it's smooth, it is smooth. And it is fine, but that just doesn't really happen all that often. And on the normal one, even more so than on the Pro. So I will give it still 4.5 stars. Just to show that it's not on a flagship level, but it is actually even still slower than the P20 Pro that barely missed the 5-star mark, but this one, yeah, definitely did not. So I'm not happy with the performance here, and that just once again shows, since it's the same chip with the same resolution, it's just the optimization that's just pretty much not there. Now about the battery life, the difference is actually not that bad compared to the smaller size of the battery, but what I got is about 6 hours on mobile data and roughly 7.5 to 8 hours on Wi-Fi, which is still a very good level. The standby drain was absolutely fine, so nothing really to talk about here anymore. Software is the same, so I'm not even gonna cover that at all. And pretty much everything else is the same, because of course, as you can see here, draw, nice options. And I've talked about it so many times that I actually in general like the idea of this UI, because you have a theming engine, you have a nice amount of options by now, settings, and everything is there. But the optimization, there is display dimming going on. There are some issues with the notch that, for example, hides Instagram, but these are smaller minor things, but there are just a few annoyances. And just a few things that I can't get by with. The biggest issue of the optimization, that it just doesn't run all that well. Now, it's time for the camera, which I also won't really show any pictures. And I know Actually, not that many. I think like 2 or 3 people complained about the fact that I didn't show anything. But since I didn't do it on the Pro, I just won't do it on the P20. And the sole reason, therefore, is not that I'm biased or that I want to show something because I want to not maybe show what it is. It's just that I don't want to spend 5 minutes talking about the cam. So if you want to know more about that, check the Pro review, because this one is very similar. The Selfie Cam is pretty much exactly the same. Video as well. The main camera, especially for low light, is also very similar. Main camera, a few differences are there, and it's not huge. Of course, you don't get things like, for example, 3 and 5 times zoom, just 2 times zoom, but it's negligible. This is still an absolutely top nice camera. I like it a lot. But that's all I want to say, and already get to the conclusion. Here's the rating. And if you actually check that, just in terms of the stars, not much has changed. The biggest differences would have been the speaker, which is noticeably weaker. But if you just check the general qualities, the design and in-hand feel is very similar. The Pro is just bigger. The display, a little bit better on the Pro, but this one is still totally fine. My main issue is still the dimming, and that is something that both have, so that is actually not a big change. It's more brightness here that could be a deciding factor. Like I said, the speaker performance is better here, but it should not be. Battery life is better here, about an hour. How many percentage that is, that I don't really care. Software is the same, and the camera generally is still better. But then let's not forget about some other things, because these phones, for whatever the price they are going at the moment, with or not a Bose headset or anything like that, still don't have an SD card support. For example, also the oleophobic coding isn't the best, but what the normal one also is missing compared to this one is the IP rating is a little bit lower. Not that I really care. The camera is not quite the same, battery is smaller, but it's not that much. Now, I would still say, especially since the Pro gets subsidized very much more than the normal one, in many cases you actually will have better value of the Pro, since you can get that just so much cheaper. And there's nothing wrong with the 20, but since I already said that, and I'm not gonna lie or try to hide something, I said it already in the P20 Pro review. I hate those phones, and it was a torture for me to review them. And that has no impact on the objective part, because the stars and everything there is, that's something that I don't really check the device on its own. And I don't hate the devices, but it's more about the company and how they kind of do things and the decisions that they make with the dimming and such, which I will make a, I think, dedicated video to. But the phones are solid. The Pro is definitely still better, but this is an absolutely nice phone, but there is nothing that really excites me all that much about. It's after all, for me, once again, dimming, and the performance is noticeably below a flagship level. The rest are totally fine. So if you want to get it, if you can get it for a good price, and if you are okay with a smaller phone, with just a smaller little compromise that you make over the Pro, it's fine. That's it. Okay, until next time, bye.